Imagine waking up tomorrow and without forcing yourself, without relying on motivation, without watching another productivity video, you naturally do the things you've always struggled with. You wake up on time, you exercise, you study without procrastinating, you stop scrolling after 5 minutes instead of 5 hours, you speak with confidence, you keep your promises. Not because you suddenly became more disciplined, but because that's simply who you are. Now here's a strange question. Why is it that some people can wake up at 5 a.m. every single day without an alarm, while others struggle to get out of bed even after 10 alarms? Why do some people naturally save money, while others spend everything they earn? Why do some people never miss a workout, while others quit after 3 days? Is it genetics, talent, willpower, or luck? Psychologists have been studying this question for decades, and they've discovered something fascinating. The difference isn't just in habits. It isn't motivation. It isn't discipline. It's something much deeper. It's identity. The story you believe about who you are. Because every action you take is trying to prove something to yourself. If you believe you're lazy, your brain will constantly look for evidence that you're lazy. If you believe you're confident, you'll slowly begin acting like a confident person. If you believe you're someone who never gives up, quitting starts feeling uncomfortable. The most successful people in the world don't constantly ask, "What should I do today?" Instead, consciously or unconsciously, they ask, "What would someone like me do?" And that single question changes everything. Today, we're going to understand how identity is formed, why it controls almost every decision you make, what neuroscience says about changing it, and most importantly, how you can completely reshape your identity to become the person you've always wanted to be. Because your future isn't determined by your goals, it's determined by the person you believe you are. The invisible force controlling your life. Let's do a small experiment. Imagine I ask you to describe yourself. What would you say? Maybe, I'm an introvert. I'm not good at mathematics. I'm bad at speaking English. I'm lazy. I'm creative. I'm not athletic. I'm not a morning person. Did you notice something? Almost every description starts with, I am. These two words are incredibly powerful because whatever follows them, your brain treats as truth, even when it isn't. Think about it. Were you born believing you were bad at public speaking? No. Were you born believing you were lazy? No. Were you come into this world believing you couldn't learn languages? Of course not. Somewhere along the way, life gave you experiences. People gave you labels. Teachers compared you. Friends laughed. Parents unknowingly repeated certain words. Maybe you failed an exam. Maybe you got rejected. Maybe someone said, "You're just not smart enough." And after hearing the same story enough times, it stopped being a comment. It became your identity. The scary part? Most people never question it. Imagine someone telling you every single day for 10 years, "You're terrible at drawing." Eventually, even if you've barely practiced, you'll start believing it. And because you believe it, you stop trying. Since you stop trying, you never improve. Since you never improve, you tell yourself, "See, I knew I wasn't good at drawing." This is called a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your belief changes your behavior creates results, and your results strengthen your belief. It's a loop, a very powerful one. The elephant story. There's a famous story about elephants. When an elephant is young, it's tied with a heavy chain. The baby elephant tries to escape, again and again and again, but it's too weak. Eventually, it gives up. Years later, that elephant becomes one of the strongest animals on Earth. It could easily break the chain, but it never even tries. Not because the chain is strong, because the belief is. Now think about your own life. How many invisible chains are you carrying? I can't build muscle. I'll never become confident. I'm not attractive. I'm always unlucky. I'm not disciplined. Most of these aren't facts. They're old conclusions. And the worst part is, you keep collecting evidence to prove them right. What science says about identity. Let's look at what psychology has discovered. One of the biggest names in psychology is Albert Bandura. He introduced the idea of self-efficacy. Simply put, it's your belief in your ability to succeed. Bandura found something fascinating. People with high self-efficacy don't necessarily have more talent. Instead, they believe their actions matter. Because of that, they attempt harder tasks, persist longer, recover faster after failure. Eventually, they outperform people who may have started with more ability. Notice something. The belief came first. The results came later. Most people think, I'll become confident after I succeed. Psychology says the opposite often happens. You begin acting differently because you believe you can improve. Then success follows. Now, this doesn't mean blind confidence. It means giving yourself permission to grow. The growth mindset. Another psychologist whose work changed education forever is Carol Dweck. She spent years studying students. She discovered that people generally fall into two mindsets, a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Someone with a fixed mindset says, I'm just bad at coding. I'm not a math person. I'm naturally shy. End of story. A growth mindset sounds different. I'm not good at coding yet. That tiny word, yet, changes everything because it transforms identity from something permanent into something flexible. People with a growth mindset learn faster, recover from failure better, take on bigger challenges, and achieve more over time. Not because they're smarter, because they don't see failure as proof of who they are. They see it as information. Imagine two students fail the same exam. Student A thinks, I'm stupid. Student B thinks, I studied the wrong way. Same result, completely different identities. Guess who improves next time? Your brain is always rewriting itself. Now let's move into neuroscience. For many years, scientists believed the adult brain couldn't change very much. If you were shy, you stayed shy. If you were anxious, you stayed anxious. If you struggled with focus, that was simply your personality. Then researchers discovered something incredible. Your brain constantly changes. This ability is called neuroplasticity. Every thought, every habit, every repeated behavior strengthens certain neural pathways. Imagine walking through a forest. The first time, it's difficult. There are bushes everywhere. But if you walk the same path every day, eventually a clear trail appears. Your brain works the same way. The more often you think, I'm lazy, the easier that thought becomes. The more often you think, I'm someone who finishes what I start, the stronger that pathway becomes. Your brain doesn't know whether you're practicing excellence or excuses. It simply strengthens whatever you repeat most. That's why changing your identity isn't about one motivational speech. It's about repeated evidence. Why goals aren't enough. Now here's something that surprises most people. Goals are important, but goals alone rarely change lives. Imagine two people training for a marathon. Both have the same goal, run 42 kilometers. One quits after 2 weeks. The other trains every morning. Why? Different identity. One says, I'm trying to run. The other says, I am a runner. See the difference? One is chasing a goal. The other is protecting an identity. This idea became widely popular through the work of James Clear. He explains that there are 3 levels of behavior: outcomes, processes, and identity. Most people focus on outcomes. I want 6-pack abs. I want good grades. I want 1 million subscribers. Some focus on systems. I'll exercise. I'll study. I'll upload videos. But the deepest level is identity. I am an athlete. I am a learner. I am a creator. When identity changes, habits become easier because every habit becomes a vote for the person you want to become. Think about someone who says, I am a vegetarian. Do they struggle every day deciding whether to eat meat? Usually not, because saying no isn't difficult. It's simply consistent with who they believe they are. Identity removes thousands of unnecessary decisions. Instead of asking, should I work out today? The question becomes, what would a healthy person do? The answer is obvious. Why motivation always fails. Have you ever noticed something? On January 1st, gyms are packed. Everyone is motivated. People buy expensive shoes, new notebooks, fresh planners, perfect schedules. And by February, most of them have disappeared. Why? Because motivation is emotional. Identity is structural. Motivation says, I feel like doing it. Identity says, this is what people like me do. That's why successful people don't depend on motivation every single day. They depend on routines that reinforce who they believe they are. And here's the beautiful part. You don't need to transform overnight. You don't need to become a completely different person tomorrow. You only need to cast 1 vote, then another, then another. Because identity isn't built in a single life-changing moment. It's built in thousands of ordinary moments when nobody is watching. Identity isn't built in a single life-changing moment. It's built in thousands of ordinary moments when nobody is watching. Every time you choose to read instead of scrolling, every time you wake up when the alarm rings, every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're not just completing a task, you're casting another vote for your new identity. And after enough votes, the evidence becomes impossible for your brain to ignore. Because your brain doesn't ask, what do you want to become? It asks, what have you repeatedly shown me? Your identity is a collection of evidence. Imagine walking into a courtroom. On trial is the statement, I am a disciplined person. The judge asks for evidence. What do you present? If the evidence is, I worked out once last month. I studied the night before the exam. I woke up early twice. The verdict is obvious. Not enough evidence. Now imagine another person. For the past year, they've exercised 4 days every week, read 10 pages every day, kept a journal, finished what they started. The judge doesn't need convincing. The evidence speaks for itself. Your subconscious mind works almost exactly like that judge. It doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about your repeated actions. That's why affirmations alone rarely work. Standing in front of a mirror and saying, I'm confident, won't magically transform your life. Because your subconscious immediately asks, where's the proof? Real confidence is evidence-based. Real discipline is evidence-based. Real self-esteem is evidence-based. And the beautiful thing is, you don't need massive achievements. You only need consistent proof. 1 page, 1 workout, 1 difficult conversation, 1 promise kept. Tiny actions, repeated daily, become overwhelming evidence. The power of cognitive dissonance. Now, here's one of the most fascinating discoveries in psychology. It's called cognitive dissonance. It sounds complicated, but the idea is incredibly simple. Your brain hates contradictions. If you believe, I am an honest person, but then you lie, you'll feel uncomfortable. If you believe, I care about my health, but you eat junk food every single day, something feels wrong. Your brain wants your actions and identity to match. Now, here's the interesting part. Most people let their identity control their actions, but you can also let your actions reshape your identity. Imagine someone who has never exercised. One day, they complete a 10-minute workout. Nothing extraordinary, but now their brain notices something. Wait, people who never exercise don't usually work out. Maybe I'm becoming someone who exercises. The next workout becomes slightly easier, then another, then another. Eventually, not exercising starts to feel strange. That's when identity has shifted. This happens throughout life. People say, I'm socially awkward. I'm terrible with money. I'm not creative. But here's the truth. Most of these aren't permanent characteristics. They're descriptions of repeated behavior, and repeated behavior can change, which means identity can change too. Method 1. Decide who you want to become. This sounds obvious, but very few people actually do it. Most people have goals. Almost nobody has a clearly defined identity. Ask yourself, who do I genuinely want to become? Not, what do I want, but who do I want to be? Maybe it's someone who keeps promises, speaks confidently, learns continuously, treats people with kindness, builds their body, controls their emotions, creates instead of consuming. Write it down. Not 10 identities, just 3 to 5. These become your compass, because every decision now has a filter. Would the future version of me do this? If the answer is no, you already know what to do. Method 2. Change your language. Words create reality. Notice the difference between these two sentences. I have to study. I get to become someone who learns every day. One sounds like punishment. The other sounds like identity. Instead of saying, I have to go to the gym, say, I'm an athlete in training. Instead of, I'm trying to read, say, I'm becoming a reader. Instead of, I hope I'll become disciplined, say, I'm building the habits of a disciplined. This happens throughout life. People say, I'm socially awkward. I'm terrible with money. I'm not creative. But here's the truth. Most of these aren't permanent characteristics. They're descriptions of repeated behavior, and repeated behavior can change, which means identity can change too. Method 1. Decide who you want to become. This sounds obvious, but very few people actually do it. Most people have goals. Almost nobody has a clearly defined identity. Ask yourself, who do I genuinely want to become? Not, what do I want, but who do I want to be? Maybe it's someone who keeps promises, speaks confidently, learns continuously, treats people with kindness, builds their body, controls their emotions, creates instead of consuming. Write it down. Not 10 identities, just 3 to 5. These become your compass, because every decision now has a filter. Would the future version of me do this? If the answer is no, you already know what to do. Method 2. Change your language. Words create reality. Notice the difference between these two sentences. I have to study. I get to become someone who learns every day. One sounds like punishment. The other sounds like identity. Instead of saying, I have to go to the gym, say, I'm an athlete in training. Instead of, I'm trying to read, say, I'm becoming a reader. Instead of, I hope I'll become disciplined, say, I'm building the habits of a disciplined. The words may seem small, but language shapes thought. Thought shapes action. Action shapes identity. Method 3. Start ridiculously small. Here's where most people make a huge mistake. They think changing identity requires changing everything overnight. Tomorrow, wake up at 5, read 50 pages, meditate, cold shower, run 5 kilometers, study 6 hours, no sugar, no social media, perfect routine. It sounds inspiring until day 3. Then everything collapses. Behavior scientist B.J. Fogg found that tiny habits are far more likely to stick than dramatic changes. Why? Because consistency beats intensity. Want to become a reader? Read 1 page. Want to become fit? Do 5 push-ups. Want to become a writer? Write 1 paragraph. These actions seem insignificant, but remember, you're not trying to change your life today. You're trying to cast another vote for your identity. Never underestimate a small action repeated hundreds of times. The bamboo tree lesson. There's a story about the Chinese bamboo tree. After planting the seed, you water it every day. Weeks pass. Nothing happens. Months pass. Still nothing. Even after years, there appears to be no growth. Most people would quit, but beneath the surface, the roots are expanding. Then suddenly, within a few weeks, the bamboo shoots up dozens of feet. Did it grow in a few weeks? No, it was growing the entire time. You just couldn't see it. Identity works exactly the same way. For weeks, you'll feel like nothing is changing. You'll still doubt yourself. You'll still make mistakes. You'll still feel ordinary. But beneath the surface, your brain is laying new foundations. One day, people will say, "You changed so much." They'll think it happened overnight. You'll know it didn't. It happened every single day when you chose to keep going. Method 4. Become the architect of your environment. Most people think discipline comes from willpower. Research suggests something different. Your environment silently shapes your behavior. If your phone is next to your bed, you'll probably check it. If healthy food is visible, you're more likely to eat it. If books are within reach, you'll read more. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You usually fall to the level of your environment. Want to become someone who studies consistently? Keep your desk clean. Remove distractions. Leave your notebook open before sleeping. Want to become healthier? Make unhealthy choices slightly harder. Make healthy choices ridiculously easy. Don't fight your environment. Design it, because every good environment quietly reinforces your new identity. Imagine 2 people trying to become fit. The first relies on motivation. Every morning they ask, "Do I feel like exercising today?" Some days, yes. Most days, no. The second person prepares the night before. Their shoes are ready. Their workout clothes are laid out. Their water bottle is filled. When they wake up, there is almost no decision left to make. One person depends on emotions. The other depends on systems, and systems almost always win. Identity isn't built in a single life-changing moment. It's built in thousands of ordinary moments when nobody is watching. Every time you choose to read instead of scrolling, every time you wake up when the alarm rings, every time you keep a promise to yourself, you're not just completing a task, you're casting another vote for your new identity. And after enough votes, the evidence becomes impossible for your brain to ignore. Because your brain doesn't ask, "What do you want to become?" It asks, "What have you repeatedly shown me?" The identity audit. Take out a notebook. Not tomorrow, not after this video, right now, and write one simple question at the top of the page. Who do I believe I am? Don't write the person you wish you were. Don't write the version of yourself you show on social media. Write the version you genuinely believe exists inside your own mind. Maybe it's, I'm inconsistent. I'm always anxious. I'm not confident. I'm not attractive. I'm always late. I'm terrible with money. I'm a fast learner. I'm dependable. I'm creative. Whatever comes to your mind first, write it down. Now, beside each statement, ask yourself another question. Where did this belief come from? Was it because you failed once? Because someone criticized you years ago? Because a teacher compared you to someone else? Because your parents unintentionally repeated the same words? Because of one embarrassing moment in school? Or because you've simply repeated the same behavior for... Here's what you'll discover. Many of the identities controlling your life today weren't consciously chosen. They were inherited, collected, repeated, and eventually accepted as truth. But accepting something as truth doesn't make it permanent. Remember, your past may explain why you think the way you do today. It does not decide who you have to become tomorrow. Your identity isn't carved into stone. It's written in pencil, and pencils can be erased. Method 5. Write a new story. Every person on this planet is constantly telling themselves a story. Some stories create extraordinary lives. Others quietly destroy potential. One person says, I'm the kind of person who always gives up. Another says, I'm the kind of person who always finds a way. Both experience setbacks, both fail, both struggle, but because their stories are different, their futures become different. Imagine two entrepreneurs whose businesses fail. The first says, I failed because I'm not good enough. The second says, my strategy failed, I'll build a better one. Same event, different identity, different outcome. Your life isn't controlled only by what happens to you. It's controlled by the meaning you assign to what happens. So begin rewriting your story. Instead of saying, I've always been lazy, say, for years I built habits that made me feel lazy. Today I'm building different ones. Instead of, I'm bad at communication, say, communication is a skill I'm practicing every day. Those aren't empty affirmations. They're accurate. They're based on growth. And they're far more powerful because they're believable. When you fail, don't change your identity. Here's something nobody talks about. You will fail. You'll miss workouts. You'll procrastinate again. You'll waste time. You'll skip study sessions. You'll make mistakes. That's normal. The mistake isn't failing. The mistake is turning one failure into an identity. Imagine someone trying to become healthier. One day they eat an unhealthy meal. Many people immediately think, see, I'll never change. But think about this logically. Does one unhealthy meal make someone unhealthy? Of course not. Just like one workout doesn't make someone athletic. Identity is built through patterns, not isolated moments. Don't let one bad day become permission for a bad month. If you miss once, return the next day. Protect the identity, not the streak. Consistency isn't about perfection. It's about returning, again and again, until the new version of you becomes automatic. The person you become is hidden in your daily choices. People often ask, what's the one habit that changed my life? But that's the wrong question. Lives aren't changed by one habit. They're changed by thousands of tiny decisions. The decision to read instead of scroll, to wake up when the alarm rings, to speak kindly to yourself, to finish what you started, to choose growth over comfort. None of those moments feel life-changing. In fact, most of them feel ordinary, and that's exactly why people underestimate them. Success rarely looks dramatic while it's happening. It looks boring, quiet, repetitive, invisible. Until one day, the results become impossible to ignore. People will call you disciplined, confident, successful, lucky. They'll think you changed overnight, but you'll know the truth. You changed in the moments nobody saw. At the beginning of this video, I asked you to imagine waking up as the person you've always wanted to become. Someone disciplined, confident, focused, healthy, reliable. Now here's the truth. That version of you already exists. Not in some parallel universe, not years from now, but in every decision you make today. Every action you take is casting a vote. Every promise you keep strengthens your identity. Every challenge you overcome rewrites your self-image. Every time you choose growth instead of comfort, you become a slightly different person. Remember, you don't rise to your goals. You rise or fall to the identity you repeat every single day. So stop asking, how do I become successful? Start asking, what would the person I want to become do right now? Then do that. Not once, not when motivation strikes, but every single day. Because your identity isn't something you discover. It's something you build. One thought, one action, one decision, one promise, one ordinary day at a time. Years from now, people may admire your confidence, your discipline, your success. They'll see the finished masterpiece, but they'll never see the thousands of invisible brushstrokes that created it. And that's okay, because you'll know. You became that person long before the world noticed. So when this video ends, don't just close it and move on. Pick one identity, just one. Write it down, then ask yourself one final question. What is the smallest action I can take today that proves I'm already becoming this person? Do that one thing. Tomorrow, do it again, and then again. Because extraordinary lives are never built through extraordinary days. They're built through ordinary days, repeated with extraordinary consistency. The person you become tomorrow depends on the identity you choose to practice today.